here. I wanted to do a tutorial on how to set up the new moving head model and a little bit about how to use the new moving head effect. Because the toughest thing for people to figure out is probably going to be how to get the parameters set up that are different from the existing moving heads. So there's this new moving head advanced. I'm going to place one in here on the screen. Let me just try to get it on the rooftop here. So I'll put one around there and I'm going to do copy, paste, drag out like 4 of these. Okay. So the first thing when you've got the moving heads, um, I'll just mention, you're not going to have them look like this if you don't want. You're going to be able to go in here and we'll probably have some other quick ways. Hopefully we'll have a library where you can just download the different kind of heads once we start building up a library of them. Like you'd go in here and use the download feature because you can come in here and change the object file that is drawing these heads. All three, these are 3 pieces here. So you've got the base. In fact, I think you can. Do I have where you can hide? Yeah, you can. Like I can just show like see how the base turns into just the mesh right there, so you can see what I'm talking about there. And then you've got the yoke, which is that guy, and then of course the head part. So those are all going to be customizable. You could shift them around. As you can see here, there's like a Y offset for moving the head up into the yoke of 17. And anyways, didn't want to get too detailed into that yet. So the first thing is going to be um, your positions. So when you got multiple heads, for it to work right in the new moving head effect, xLights needs to know, where is this head positioned so that when you do things like fans, it knows how to apply the correct offsets to fan the heads out. So let's go to the second head, and under fixture, you're going to change that to say it's fixture number 2. Let's go over to the third one and say you're fixture number 3. And then over here, we'll tell them fixture 4. And I've got ability to do up to eight fixtures, and that just means that if you want to use the effect, you're gonna you could control more than 8, but you're only going to be able to assign 8 positions. So you could come in here and assign all 8 heads to position 1 if you want, and then when you tell it to do a command for position 1, they all do the same thing. Um, so you could control more than 8, but you're only going to be able to have 8 different types of commands in one effect. Okay, let's get to the pan motor. That's going to be the next thing. Okay, I'm gonna leave this first one the way I've got it set as defaults because that's kind of like the way mine is. So let's go to the second head and let's say, well, that's not the way I installed my head. You want this to point to the way you have it installed and where it points when there's a 0. So let's just say that this one needs to pan 90 degrees because you installed it pointing backwards. And then let's go to the third head and say to orient it to 0 that you've got to go 180 degrees because you installed it pointing to the left. And then we'll say the fourth head is 270 because you installed it pointing forward. So what I'm trying to do is show how we're gonna be able to work with heads that are installed in any kind of different position that you might run into. And then you can decide, how you want to install it. But no matter how you install it, you'll be able to come in here, set your parameters, and make it work. Okay, so the pan motor, it can work with either 8 or 16-bit motors. And what I mean by 8 or 16-bit is some DMX heads are going to take two channels. So it might have like channel 1 might be your coarse, channel 2 could be your fine channel. And then on the tilt motor, I've got that assigned to channel 3. I'll just leave that as a 0. So if you leave it as a 0, it's unassigned. And so we're basically saying that there's, an 8-bit motor for tilt and 16-bit for pan. That's not normally typical, but just showing that's flexible and that it will work. The colors are already defaulting to channels 5, 6, and 7 for RGB. I'll leave it like that for now. But let's go show what happens when we start trying to deal with these heads that are all pointing in a different direction. First here, let me create a model group. I'll call all heads. And then I'm going to assign all 4 of them in there. And now I'm going to just open up a blank animation. So the new moving head effect is here. I'm going to drop that down. Okay, I can see it's already picking up. I had the program open earlier, so let me select them all and 0 these things back out. If you put this in the center here, that's going to be like a 0, 0 position command. The red's coming from this color over here where you can change the colors. Let me just move that out a little. But we want to go back to the position tab. So we want to put a 0, 0 command on there and look at what's happening. I gotta 0 this guy out too, just so it looks like defaults. Okay, those are defaults. Okay, so you can see how we want them pointing forward and up for like what we're going to call a home position, and we want everyone to define this same position as the home position. So if I tell this to point forward, you can see they're all pointing 4 different directions because of the way that's the way a normal DMX effect would have worked if you installed them this way and you gave a command to that group. And let's see, to see that, we need to put see the beam, we need to put an on effect on top here. So like if you drop the DMX effect down and you start moving that pan channel, you can see how they're all moving to the different spots because they were all installed different. What we want to do is go teach xLights how these things are installed so that it can make the corrections to send a common command to all of them. So this first head you can see is pointing, basically this grid here is panning is left and right and tilting is up and down. So each little square here is 45 degrees. So if I click right there, that's 0 pan, 45-degree tilt. So it should be looking like this, where it's pointing towards your street at a 45-degree angle. Now if you clicked over here, it would be, well, can't see the top of this. This isn't changing because you got to select which of the fixtures you want to mess with. Like you could just come in here and say, oh, I want to move just fixture 1, and then as you're moving this around, that'll be the only fixture that you're assigning that command to. For now, we'll just do the command to all 4 of them. Now let's go correct our home position. So this guy here is not pointing right. So we need to go into number 2 for that pan motor and say, see how it's panned backwards. So for us to be pointing forward, we need to say you need to go 180 degrees to point forward. And so now I come back and click on that, and you can see now those first two heads should be doing the same thing now. See, no matter where I tell them to go, those two heads are now pointing the same spot, but we still got to work on 3 and 4 here. So let's go back to number 3. I'm just going to worry about pan now. I won't say most, but all the heads I've seen, the tilt is usually the same. But so that's not going to matter a whole lot on which way you install it. It's normally the pan that, you have a choice on how your pan is oriented. But, the tilt motor is going to have plenty of parameters that you can adjust to deal with, anything you should run into position-wise. I've even experimented with mounting them upside down like they were hanging from like a DJ pole, and I've gotten that to work. Um, and if your motor runs the opposite way from the way this runs in here, you can tell that motor to flip. If you were hanging it upside down, then you would do the upside down setting because that tells it to invert everything. Okay, so for fixing the pan on this guy, assuming he rotates clockwise, because we haven't reversed that pan motor, this one we want to say you need to go 270 degrees to rotate all the way around to point forward. And let's see if that fixes that guy. And now let's go to number 4. And number 4, you're already pointing forward, so let's just say 0. So we'll come back here, and now you see how all 4 heads point to the same spot. Now if it was a DMX command, still doing their wacky, I'm pointing wherever 0 told me to point, but on the moving head effect, it now has all those corrections to tell it to offset from the 0 position to what I'm calling the home position. So now we could come in here and say, well, I want to do a pan from minus 45 to plus 45. And I told all 4 heads to do that. You can see they're all, and then you say, what? Wait a minute, what's that 4th head doing? I'm going to explain that. So these heads are trying to move to an absolute angle in 3D space, and it's, I'm telling it, I want you to pan, from minus 45, which is here, to plus 45, and I want you to tilt. I mean, I said pan. Yeah, I wanted you to pan from like minus to plus, and then I wanted to tilt to stay at 45 degrees. So go from here to here. So that's what we had here. But what's happening to this 4th head is his 0 position is pointing forward. So as soon as he gets to 0, he's got to spin around to try to continue the motion. Because it's going to, xLights is automatically figuring out that, hey, that guy's about to hit his limit. So when he hits his limit, he's going to spin all the way around. So there's actually a pretty cool way you can fix that. And what you do is go back over here. If you happen to install your heads pointing forward, you can say, I need to move 360 degrees to point forward. And because you have 540-degree range of motion, you're now going to be able to move 180 degrees front and back without ever having to do that correction spin. So now we come back and click on it. It re-renders, and you can see all 4 heads are now doing the same thing, and this guy doesn't have to do his flip. And that's because he's now pre-wound himself 360 degrees before he starts. So when you boot these heads up, you would actually, when you give a 0 command, let me select them all, give a 0 command, you'd actually see that head have to do a little bit of an extra spin to get there from the others. Sometimes you can click around and see it happen. Anyways, as you move around the grid here now, you'll see all four heads are doing the same. See how they all used a different route to get there? That's because their home positions are all in different spots, but they all end up pointing to the same spot. Now, for most people, hopefully you've got the same heads, you installed them the same direction, they're all going to move the same way. But this is showing that you can, if you need to, you can, you can deal with that and you can tell it, what your home position is and how to make the heads all move to the same spot. Let's see, also the fixture positions, it automatically figures those out. So if I went back and told it that, oh, this guy here is really moving head fixture 1. So that means I've got a 1, a 1, a 2, and a 4. So I don't have a 3 anymore. So if I go back over here, click on the effect, you're going to see 3's now grayed out because I've only got 1, 2, and 4. So when I'm applying commands to 1 and telling 1 to move, let's make 1 green, you can see both those heads now do the same thing because the command is being actually given to the fixture position. And so then the xLights goes through and says, okay, which heads in that group are assigned to that fixture, and then assigns the command to that fixture position. So both those heads are going to copy each other. But let's go back and fix that because this is really going to be a 3 and we want the heads to do different things. So if I go back, click on it now they're all independent. Some of these buttons up here, those are just quick selections. So you can select all 4 fixtures. You can say I just want the even numbered ones, odd numbered ones, or you can say none and then individually come in here and pick whatever you want. What that's going to allow you to do is, let's just say we want to mess with colors here. You could come in here and say, I want head 2 to be blue. I want head 3 to be orange. And I want head 4 to be pink. And those are the 4 different colors you're going to get. You could say, I want my evens to be green, and you'll get that. So you can pretty much come in and assign, and you'll see like where it's at right there, so you can change it. xLights will go in there when you select a fixture and figure out, hey, I've got a head on that fixture and it's got that color, and then you could change it. Let's go back to number 2. Change him just to make them all 4 different. So now when we're in the position here, let's just scroll down so you can see the pan. So if I tell it to pan, see I've only got number 2 selected, so I can actually give per fixture commands. So I can tell it, okay, you do that. Let me just say 1 and 2. You're going to do this ramp, so I can make 1 and 2 move. I can select 3 and 4. Let's tell them that they're going to do a ramp on tilt, let's say from 45 to 0. So you can see 1 and 2 are doing a pan value curve. 3 and 4 are doing a tilt value curve. So you're able to independently assign a different command to every moving head if you want, all in one effect, or you can select them all and tell them to all do the same thing. You can change colors on each head, or you can tell all 4 to be the same color. Pathing. Pathing is, well, I haven't drawn anything yet, but you can come in here and start. Let me hold. Let's see. I want to do curves. This is just like the sketch effect. So if I click Shift, it'll allow me to create curves. So click, 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 and then I'm going to hit Escape. I'm going to tell it to close. Drag these out to here, and I've just made a circle shape. So now you'll see the heads are moving in the path of a circle. But let's say that's too big, so you can drag the scale down, have them do little tiny circles. So you can adjust the scale of how big of a circle they're doing, whatever path you draw. You make them do really big circles, so big they're going to have to flip over just to be able to, draw the shape. Time offset. That says I want you all to be drawing a circle, but I want each head to be at a different point in the circle. So you can see how it's going to stagger where each head is. If you want to ignore one of the axes, you could ignore the pan, ignore the tilt, and it'll just start doing whichever one you have. And let's say we like this circle shape. We can save that as a preset. And I'm going to type in circle. And now you see a picture of a circle down here. So then let's clear this out. Let's just draw a square. I'm going to hit escape, hold to close it. If you need to make an adjustment, you can move those. Now I'm going to save that one as a square. So now you can just come down here and click that to change it to a circle, click that, change it to a square. There's a similar feature here. Let's say I had my even heads were green and the odd ones were red. And I have some kind of position I like. Let's turn off the pathing, so we'll clear that. Well, I need to select them all. Let's clear out all four heads so they're not moving. Let's give them a little bit of a fan shape. And I can say, oh, I like that. Let me save that as a preset. I'll just call it fan 1. So xLights is gonna, let me drag this out so it fixes the size. So xLights is gonna go down here and try to draw a bitmap of, what those heads look like, and it tries to calculate the angles. And it's set up to do 8 heads, so since there's only 4 of them, that's why the 4 on the left. There's room for the other 4 on the right. Let's see. Let me go just show if you went in here and let's make the left ones red and the right ones blue. Go back to this tab where the save preset is. I'll just call that fan 2. So now that you have that, you can quickly just click on these presets and it's automatically gonna go right to whatever you have there. So you can come over to pathing, click circle. Since I had 3 and 4 selected, now 3 and 4 are doing a circle. So all this stuff I've just done has been done with one effect. Now if we go back, look at our DMX effect again, everything points a different direction because they're all installed differently. So yeah, that was the thing I was trying to solve, is so that vendors and people could share sequences and everybody's show would look the same without having to try to do some weird offsets to all the effects to make things point the same direction. So with this, as long as you've got the parameters set up properly for how your head's installed, then when you get a sequence from someone and their sequence is that their head's pointing, like that, or maybe over here, yours should be pointing the same way as well. Still add some fan in there. Let's see. Groupings is going to be, let me put this back to, so let's say you told it to do a fan in the pan direction. You can see they're all fanning out one way or the other. Let me make it a little smaller. Fan fans out really fast because it's adding that many degrees to each position, and it kind of like goes out from the center. That's why those moving head fixture positions are important, because then it knows where the head is and it knows what kind of offset to add to each position. Well, if I say groupings of 2, what that does is it says I want each pair of heads to fan out instead of all 4 of them. And grouping the 3 probably doesn't make sense, but that takes the first 3 and fans those out and then starts doing the 4th one. So 4 and 1 would be the same. If you have a grouping of 2, that means 1 and 3 are the same and 2 and 4 point the same. So that's what groupings does. Cycles would be like, let's say you were telling these to do a circle. Cycles would speed it up so that they do a faster circle. So it'd be like, how many times does it draw a circle during that effect space? So if we want it to be 2, it would go around 2 times before it got to the end of the effect. So that's what cycles does. Oh, and another thing to be aware of is these presets down here. Let me just test this because I'm still figuring out some of my own quirks in the stuff I've written. Let's say we've got these doing a circle, and we come into here. Let me just change the colors so I know it's a different preset. Let me save that preset, and I'll just call it circles. So if I click on that, they're static, those colors, static, those colors. Click on that one, and you can see it's got the pathing stored with that preset. So when you store a preset on this page, it saves everything. It saves the position, the path, and the coloring. Now when you're on this page, you're only changing the path. You're not changing anything else. So like if I click squares, it's going to make the path be a square, but they're still doing this, the same coloring and the same positioning that's on the other tabs. One thing that might not be obvious is like pan still does something here, even when you're telling it, even when you're telling it to draw like a circle. Let me go back to position. Let me zero out fan. So if I pan these all over to the left here, they're still drawing the circle, but they have an offset to their pan position. So these are still active, and you can still move these around and change like an offset to where that circle is being drawn. So when you have a path going, then pan and tilt become like technically like a pan offset and a tilt offset. I think I'll show one more thing real quick, which is, let's go in here to this head, say number 3. color properties, and let's just tell it that this guy's got a color wheel. And I'm going to move that dimmer channel so it doesn't conflict with my motion, and say color wheel channel is 5. Let's say dimmer 6. And it's already got 4 colors pre-assigned. So let's assume we have one head that's different than the others. So if I come in here and select, let me select the effect, select all the heads, nothing looks different. But what you'll see is that guy's not lighting up because he's a color wheel. If you click in here, see if I get in the right spot, he will light up. But see if I move away from center, it's like too far away from green. Figure out which filter to use. And I might work on that because that's really not any of my new code. That's the existing color wheel ability. It looks for a filter close to the color you're commanding. So if you command the color too far away from a filter, it won't select that filter. I think it would be nicer if it just always would pick the closest filter no matter what, because I mean you're always going to have one of the filters selected in the head, and maybe there's an open spot. I'm not familiar with all these heads with color wheels, even though I think mine might actually have a color wheel. I just haven't played with the colors yet on my head. I didn't get it in my show this year. Didn't have time. So anyways, let's deselect these and then select number 3. Boom, now you see color wheel show up. And so it dynamically created a color wheel. And if I come in here and click on blue, then it selects the blue color wheel. Red for red, green, and white. Let's go back over here. Let's tell it there's 5 colors. Let's go to the 5th color and just kind of give an orange color to that. Click on here again, and now I want to select head 3. Now it's got 5 colors, so it dynamically draws this color wheel based on how many colors you have selected. So now I can click orange, and I get orange. But if you select 2 heads, color wheel disappears because it's not going to know what to do with that color for the other head. So what xLights does is it's going to look at what type of heads there are, and for it to show the color wheel, it has to be just the color wheel selected, or a head that has the exact same number of colors in the same color wheel, or you're not going to have the option. You're going to have to use like the RGB wheel here to try to set your color. But like I said before, hopefully people have similar heads, but I'm trying to give the ability to mix and match as much as possible. If I deselect 3, you'll see color wheel disappears because you don't have a head selected that has a color wheel. So as you select the different heads, it's going to change whether that tab shows up or not. So I think with that, I'm going to end this video. And sorry it ran pretty long, but just trying to go over what I can to help people get started with this, and still working out some of the final things. Like I'll just real quick show you. It's not done yet, but you're going to be able to come in here to the moving head and then open up your, I don't know if I've got one open. Let's see. See if this comes into view, but let's say you have a spec. It's going to hide it every time I click on that. Well, I'm just showing you a spec real quick, and then I'm going to put it out of view. So let's say you have a spec like this. So you could come in here and say, I want to add a feature, and it's going to be a gobo. And I want to configure that feature. So let's say the gobo, I'm going to add a channel. So this is going to be the gobo wheel. and it's going to be on channel 5. That's a bug where when you type in the edit field on a Mac Ventura right now, it disappears. Um, this isn't a 16-bit channel, so I'm going to leave find blank, and we'll say add function. So what I'm going to do here is say, I'm just going by the spec here, so this function's open, and we'll say open it is 0 to 4. And we'll add another function called gobo1. Gobo1 is going to be from 5 to 19. And I'll just do one more, gobo2. That's going to be 20 to 34. So you can basically recreate the spec and define the channel ranges. And then hopefully I'm going to have it so that this will, as you create functions, it's automatically going to spawn new tabs for you to be able to select these function ranges to tell your moving head to do that function. Let's say this feature has another channel for the gobo, which is a gobo rotation channel. I'm looking at the spec, and that's channel 6. And looks like it has a function called indexing, and that goes from 0 to 127. And then it can rotate clockwise, and that's a value from 128 to 189. And I won't go further, but I'm just showing how you're going to be able to recreate that spec. And then let's say there's another feature called dimmer. So you could go config the dimmer feature. And let's just say this is a single channel thing. So we'll just call the channel dimmer as well. And we won't even give it a function because it's just a dimmer that goes from 0 to 255. So it should work just like that. So you'd be able to come in here and edit the features of the head. I can see I got a little glitch there. It didn't save those values. I thought I had that working. Like I said, I got some bugs to work out on some of these extra special features I'm trying to add. And then what I want is as you create those features, you'd be able to come back over here and then automatically there'd be a new tab that said Gobo, and then you'd be able to select those functions that you define. So I want it to be something that's like completely dynamic, and the user can create the functions. And hopefully the goal is for us to get a library of some of the heads that we all use, and then you'd be able to go in here and just do a download. Let's say I've got a moving head from your Pixel store, so I'm going to download that head, and it would have all that completely set up by someone. So I said I was about done before, but I'm going to end it now, and hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks.